Hello and welcome to Our Ventura. I'm your host, Frank James Malle, and with us in the studio is Francisca Beach, who is the founder and artistic director of Senga Classic Stage Company. Francisca, welcome.
Thank you very much, Frank. Delighted to be here.
It's our pleasure, believe me. Senga Classic Theatre, can you tell us its past, a little bit of its present, and a little bit of its future?
Okay, the past, Senga started in Scotland in 1997.
And that's where you hail from?
I hail from Scotland,
Oh.
yeah. I went to the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Dramatic Art.
A bonny lass you are.
Oh, thank you very much. I was bonnier then. And I had a classical training which involved all the stuff you need, the speech, the movement, mime, fencing, ballet. And that has been very good for my connection with Senga. But we did start off, and I was the founder of Senga Women's Theatre Company in Scotland in 1997.
Francisca, what is the derivation of Senga? Does it have a meaning? Is it Scottish?
Yeah, well, yes. Senga is the name of an ancient goddess of wisdom and fertility.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
And how'd you come up with that name for your theatre company?
Well, it's kind of popular in Scotland. People know that name. So we came up with a lot of other names. At one point we were going to call the Women's Theatre Company HAG.
HAG?
Yeah, because of it,
Is that an acronym?
No, hag is just like a hag, like a crone, like one of the witches in the Scottish play.
Ah.
We thought of all kinds of names, and we settled on Senga.
Okay. And currently Senga is in Ojai.
Well, yeah, what happened was, in Scotland, the vision was to promote the works of women playwrights and actresses.
So that's your mission statement?
That was the mission statement when it was a women's theatre company. And towards that, we presented a lot of different plays at the Edinburgh Festival, at the Ramshorn Theatre in Glasgow, at the Scotland Street School Museum. We just moved around wherever we could find a place. I didn't have my own theatre. So that's what we did, and it worked very well. I worked with several really fine playwrights and actors. But when I moved to Ojai, I wanted to have a theatre company here, and I wanted to produce the classics. So I used the name Senga, but of course it involves everybody. Senga Classic Stage Company is now for everybody.
Now, if you so you are concentrating on classical theater.
Yes.
Many of the actors that come to you, I understand, have little or no classical training.
True.
How is this for you as a director? How do you work with these actors? How do you get them up to speed?
Well, what I do is, within the rehearsal, the 6-week rehearsal schedule, I put in classes in speech and movement. And it varies. Some of the actors who come in are really classically very well oriented, and they can do the whole thing. And the other ones need to have a bit of training. So I do that, and so they get free classes in speech and in movement.
Have you yourself been had the opportunity to utilize any of your classical training, like for fencing? Have you ever had the opportunity to do that in a play?
Well, no, I wouldn't do that because I'm not a fencing master. I learned fencing. I would bring in a fight master if there was any need for fencing or combat in a play.
Okay. And as far as things that are possibly you're considering for Senga in the future, how do you come up with your season? How do you choose which plays to do from month to month?
Well, Frank, I don't have a season, and I like it that way. I don't plan a season. and probably one of the only theaters that don't. We do 4 productions a year, and I have sort of ideas of what I'd like to do in the future. But why it works well for me and for Senga is I clue into what's kind of happening out there in the world. What is happening in our world today? And the play then suggests itself that would be suitable for this particular time. For example, I wanted to do Trojan Women in 2010 at the beginning.
Trojan Women?
That's Euripides, is a Greek classic.
Oh, really?
It's searing. And it's about Helen of Troy and the Trojan War. It's a very, very dramatic and sad piece. Very entertaining, but really, really hard to watch. And we had so many sadnesses at the beginning of 2010. I just felt our country didn't really want to see Trojan Women. Mm-hmm. So I took it out and I put something else in. And what I'm going to do is put it in early in 2012. So I like to mix and match and just go with the feeling, a kind of organic feeling of what's going on and what might be suitable to be seen.
When people hear classical theater, they immediately assume this is Shakespeare. Of course, this is not necessarily so. Mm-hmm. Do you do Shakespeare? And if so, how do you choose which one to do?
Well, what I have done, I think that was last year 2010. Yes. Yeah. The years go by.
I know. They do indeed. They do indeed.
Last year I did Shakespeare at the Grange, it was called. And what we did was we did scenes and monologues and music with a little bit of dancing of various Shakespeare plays.
Was this contemporary music or
no,
period music?
No, it was period music.
Okay.
And that worked very well. So it all flowed from one scene to another and in a piece of music and then another scene. And in fact, I'm planning to do that again this year, around about Christmas, and to do more Shakespeare scenes and monologues. It was so popular. And people come from distances to see this kind of thing because they like to bring young people and children to introduce them to Shakespeare. And the scenes are short enough to sustain the attention of a youngster. So,
where do you find the actors, the classically trained actors for these productions?
Well, you're one of them. So we have you. You're a very, very fine actor. Classically trained, and you do Shakespeare extremely well. There are quite a few around Ventura County who are really fine actors and who love classics. And so I put out the word, I make calls, and we're lucky enough to have enough fine people to come in and fill the roles.
Huh. You are lucky indeed.
Yeah.
They say that casting can contribute to as much as 90% of an overall production. Do you agree with this, and why?
Yes, I do agree with it. I think casting is incredibly important. And I feel a director has to have a really good eye for casting an actor in the right role. And then you can go from there.
Do you like to cast against type?
No. But I do know some actors who appear to be... let me see. Casting is an intuitive thing for me. So when we're talking about type, I might see an actor who, up until now, I know on their resume they have played all kinds of comedy, very light things. But I can see in them that they could play Hamlet. And I just, it's an intuitive thing, and I go with that, and it seems to work. I have a feeling about casting.
Have you ever approached an actor for a role and they say, well why do you want me to play that role? I don't do comedy, or I don't do tragedy.
Yes, yeah.
And has it worked out?
Yes.
So you have an intuitive sense for this.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Casting is very, very important.
Tell me about your background as an actress, what your favorite roles were, and how you transitioned from acting to producing, directing.
Well, this might take another 2 hours since I'm not that young anymore. Let me see if I can just sum it up.
But is it true that you're not acting anymore?
Yeah, it's true. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I really am so busy with Senga Classic Stage Company that I wouldn't have time to be going out and giving a lot of thought and rehearsal. I actually don't have too much of a feeling to do that. There are a couple of things I would like to do that are favorites, but maybe sometime in the future. But what happened was I left drama school in Scotland and I went into the British repertory system. So that's really where I further learned my trade, because you would be there 6 months or 3 months, or at one point I was in a Pitlochry Festival Theatre for 9 months. And so I didn't have favorite roles. What happens there is you play the roles you're given and you make them work and they become your favorites. So I did a lot of acting there. And then in New York, I did some acting, went to study at the HB Studio to find out how actors...
and for those viewers who don't know HB Studios, that's Herbert Berghoff?
That's Herbert Berghoff's studio, and he was married to Uta Hagen, a very wonderful and fine actress who's now passed. She acted right up until she went to heaven. She was so fabulous. So I studied with her,
wow.
I studied with Herbert, and I learned how the Americans did it. And that was really interesting because it's a totally different approach.
Now, how do the Brits look upon the American actors? Do they look upon them with disdain or with awe and reverence?
Neither.
Or a little
Well, they don't look at them with awe and reverence because they're a pretty good actors themselves in the UK. But I think how we welcome them. I mean, Americans are very friendly. And if you have an American actor, which is quite rare, but if you have an American actor in your company come to a guest performance, you're very happy. They're different, they're nice, they're happy to be there. But my feeling is we couldn't work out how they did it. How do they work? They were so real, so absolutely clued into the role they were playing. And of course, it's all the method stuff. And the Brits work from the outside in. We study all the outer aspects of a character and then make it our own and then find the inner life. And of course, Americans work the other way around. So when I went to Herbert Berghoff's studio, I learned how to act American style, and it really helped. I already had the techniques, but it really helped my acting.
If someone wants to know more about Senga and what's coming up in the future, is there a website they can go to? Is there information at hand for them?
Yes. Do I have time to tell you a little bit about our present production?
We have about a minute. Okay,
so at the moment I'm doing a first production of Senga Youth Theatre. That is teens age 13 through 1920, and we're doing a production of The Rivals, which is a restoration comedy. 18th century, very difficult. Fans, corsets, movement, speech, exacting language, they're doing very well. The place to go to for further information is www.franciscabeach.com.
Okay.
Okay.
Terrific. Thank you, Francisca. And thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Frank Malle.